Hello, it is me, Rumburn again, like it is for every video. And I played some more skyblock, and so that means I have a new story to tell you. Get ready for the Captain's Voyage. Are you sure, Captain? Maria had to ask. Captain Dida gave her a quick glare before continuing to stare straight ahead. Would I have given the order if I wasn't? Continue. And if there are any more questions, you will be scrubbing the decks all night. Maria exchanged a glance with Jane, who shrugged. There wasn't anything else to say. The captain had made it very clear that she would not take any questions, any disobedience, any rebellion. Maria had been on enough crews to know that, ordinarily, this would be enough to cause a mutiny, and indeed, a few had been attempted. But as soon as anyone got together to plan anything, the captain showed up, as if she could somehow sense when someone was going behind her back. There had been a few chances for Maria to leave, and indeed, some of the crew had decided to do so. But Maria's father had recently broken his leg, leaving him unable to work. Maria had been desperate to find something to give her and her father enough money to get by. When the captain had stopped by her village to look for a crew, she had said that the crew members' families would be given a substantial sum of money each month while they were a part of the crew. Maria was desperate, and so she had joined the crew. From the letters her father had sent her, the money was doing its job, but he didn't know when he would be able to get back to work again. So, at each port she could have left at, Maria had stayed on board. Winter was coming, and things were always harder in winter. She wanted to make sure that her father had enough to get by. Before their most recent port, the voyage had seemed fairly standard. Maria had talked with the others about why they were being paid so well, but nobody had any good idea. They had been traveling north along the coast, stopping at the ports along the way, picking up supplies and materials and goods at one port, then selling them for a higher price, buying more goods, and picking up a few additional crew members at the next. The journey of a standard trading vessel, traveling northwards. Looking back on it, Maria should have been more suspicious. They all should have been. Her father always said that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. For, instead of continuing to Dreyer, the next port along the coast, the captain had turned the ship north, towards the iced sea. And so, after the captain had made it clear that she was determined to push on with this course, and she would not be taking any questions, Maria and Jane continued to work the sails. But as they continued to sail north, Maria kept glancing around, waiting for the first signs that they were in the iced sea. The captain's crazy, James said that night as the crew gathered together for a game of poker. No one sails in the iced sea, and that's a fact. We haven't had any problems so far, Jane argued. That's 'cause we haven't really hit it yet, Maria pointed out. Many sailors I've talked to say that they have skirted near the south side of the iced sea because of the good wind here. Even though they were barely into it, they had all noticed that this ship had already picked up a substantial amount of speed. Martin snorted. The wind's good here because that's what the iced sea is known for. His voice lowered, and everyone leaned in instinctively. Terrible winds. Shards of ice being flung around, sharp and fast enough to kill someone. Icebergs that lie hidden in the water until it's too late to avoid them. Rain so thick you can't see anything. Leviathans hiding under the ice, ready to devour any ship that comes close. There's a reason no one sails into the iced sea. If no one sails into the iced sea, how do you know what's there? Scott asked. Where do the stories come from? Some people have sailed into the iced sea and have come back just fine, Jane said. Maria snorted. Jane turned to her. It's true. My mother was on one of those ships. Sailors always exaggerate, Scott said. It's a part of the trade. The iced sea probably isn't as bad as everyone says. Then why has no one reached Iskaldoi? Martin asked. The island at the top of the iced sea? James asked. Don't be ridiculous. That's just a legend. Then why are there so many legends about it? Martin countered. James didn't know what to say, so he just shrugged. Maria turned to Jane. You said your mother sailed into the iced sea. Do you know anything about it from her? But Jane shook her head. Her crew only went far enough to discover what Martin already said about the iced sea. The one time they planned to go further, she never came back. The five of them sat in silence for a moment. We can't go into the iced sea, Maria said. If we do, we'll die. The captain's a good navigator, Scott argued. She'll get us through safely. James rolled her eyes. Come off it. I've known plenty of captains that are better than her. She just has the money. Besides, she hasn't even named the ship, Martin added, and you can tell she doesn't have a feel for the ships like we do. She's not a real captain. And she should have told us where she was taking us, Jane added softly. Maria nodded vigorously. She shouldn't have blindsided us like this. She should have made it clear where she wanted to go so we could have decided whether we wanted to stay on board. We should have suspected something was up, James said bitterly. Nobody offers a crew this much money without some kind of catch. Surely the captain knows what she's doing, Scott argued. Nobody would sail into the iced sea like this without a surefire plan for how to travel safely. They'd have to be crazy. That's what my mother did, Jane pointed out. Scott waved that aside and continued. The captain's not crazy. She counts things out very carefully at each port. She clearly has a lot of knowledge about sailing. She brought along incredibly detailed maps of where we were going. She has incredible attention to detail. She runs a good ship. She's a good captain. A good captain would have told us where they were planning to take us, Maria exploded. A good captain would let us have a say on whether or not we're going to risk our lives chasing a fairy tale. She's a good captain, Scott protested. She keeps things running how they are supposed to be, and she has made a lot of profit from our trading runs. She is the worst captain I've ever sailed under, Martin said, even if we don't consider the fact that she's taking us to the iced sea. Every other captain has named their ship. Every other captain let us explore the ports we stopped at. Every other captain joined us for games and drinks. Every other captain belonged on the sea, and you knew it. Every other captain would at least smile. The captain is even worse than Mad Jack, who thought the sun was an orange and kept mice on board because they would be lonely otherwise. There were muttered agreements all around. Scott opened his mouth to speak, but didn't say anything. What Martin had said was correct. The captain had kept herself aloof and had just expected them to follow her orders. A good captain brought life to the ship, to the crew, to the voyage. And the captain had not done anything resembling that. In fact, if anything, she had done the opposite. I say, we make her turn the ship around, Maria said fiercely. If we don't, she'll get us all killed. Are you talking about mutiny? Jane asked. Yes, Maria said, staring down Jane. No sailor liked to use that word. It meant trouble, it meant bloodshed, it meant the fracturing of a crew. But sometimes it was necessary. I'm not going to just sit here and let the captain sail us to our deaths. I'm going to do something about it. I'm in, Martin said. There's no way I'm going to go into the iced sea without a fight. It's a death trap. I'm in, James said. She should have told us her plan. I'm in, Jane said. We deserve a better captain. They all turned to Scott, who hesitated, then sighed. You're right. We can't let her do this. Suddenly, the door was flung open. Silhouetted in the doorway was the captain. She was silent for a moment, then said, Go to the main deck. When nobody moved, she put her hand to her belt, where they could all see a large knife glinting in the candlelight, and said, Go. Reluctantly, the five of them trudged up the stairs and stood at attention on the main deck. It was raining hard, and soon all of them were soaked and shivering. The captain stood at the tiller and faced them. What's this talk of mutiny? She asked quietly. Maria stepped forward, lifting her head high. You will not sail us into the iced sea. We won't allow it. I am the captain. If I decide to go into the iced sea, that is where we will go. Then you shouldn't be the captain, Martin snarled. He dashed towards the captain. Too quickly for Maria to realize what was happening, the captain smoothly stepped out of the way. As he barreled past her, the captain grabbed one of Martin's arms and forced him to the ground, bending that arm behind his back and trapping the other with her knee. With her other hand, she drew her knife and held it at Martin's throat. Martin groaned in protest and pain, but the captain brought the knife closer to his throat to silence him. If any of you move, he dies, the captain said coolly as James started to step forward. He froze and glared at the captain, who smiled. There, much better. This is your last warning. I am the captain, and you will follow me. Otherwise, I will kill a member of the crew. You can't be serious, Maria snarled. You can't just threaten to kill your crew. Watch me. She let the moment hang, with everyone staring at her aghast. Then she released Martin, shoving him away from her. He fell to the ground in a heap. If you do not want to go into the iced sea, There is another option, the captain said and pointed over the side of the ship. You can leave. I'm not going to stop you. Martin stood up and glared at the captain. Then, without any hesitation, he ran to the side of the ship and jumped overboard. Maria gasped, along with everyone else. They were miles away from any land, and it was too dark to see anything. The water was bitterly cold, and who knew what monsters swam beneath the surface? Jumping overboard was certain death. But apparently, Martin would rather take that risk than sail into the iced sea. Anyone else? The captain asked. When no one moved, she nodded briskly and strode away. Maria walked over to the edge of the railing to see if she could spot Martin, but they had already sailed away. He was gone. Are we really just going to let her continue to take us to the iced sea? James asked. She'll kill us if we try anything, Scott said. There's nothing we can do. Well, that was my story of the Captain's Voyage. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.